Welcome to this episode of Sweet Speak. I'm your host, JD Miller. Today we're going to be talking about AI and customer sentiment in emotional AI. Josh Brusin is the founder and CEO of PRXY AI, a leading innovator in emotional AI and customer intelligence. With a passion for decoding the emotions that drive consumer behavior, Josh has built tools and strategies to help businesses uncover deeper insights, connect with their audiences, and gain a competitive edge. Josh has held pivotal roles at VSA Partners and Draft FCB, where he worked on global portfolios for major consumer brands. Josh's extensive experience in blending emotional understanding with data analysis positions him at the forefront of transforming how companies approach marketing, personalization, and market disruption. He's been a driver of the evolution from demographic targeting to digital empathy at scale, the ability to understand and respond to customer needs at transactional and emotional levels. So, when we come back, we have my Sweet Speak conversation with Josh. I want to dive right on in. Your work focuses on emotional AI, a term many may not have heard of, and also emotional data. Can you share your journey leading up to founding PRXY AI and how you became passionate about this space?
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it with a role back many years ago at FCB, working on SC Johnson. I was on the creative side of the business and spent a lot of time building concepts for products, and that meant I was in focus groups, traveling the country, listening to people talk and tell us what was important to them, why things mattered, how they used tools and products. For everyday items like Ziploc bags and Glade air fresheners and cleaning products and things like that. And, it was really interesting to understand that level of what was probably easily considered minutia, but to really see the importance of that in generating insights that mattered and got people to buy products. With that as a jumping off point, my career path is pretty diverse. I went from there to work on IBM, developing brand strategies for them. With VSA Partners, as you mentioned, and then to cut the story a little bit short, found myself at Epsilon after more years in advertising and marketing, working on businesses using data tools. And I was attracted to that role because of the PII tools that Epsilon had, which were best in class and fairly unique at the time. And it really was an opportunity for me to kind of lean into what's new and different, figure out ways to bring those tools to life, to understand consumer markets better, find better fit for product, kind of tune that alignment and drive marketing success. Epsilon was acquired by Publicis. I found myself then in a center of excellence role with a strategic intelligence team, working across the group agencies, kind of implementing data methodologies, with Sapient, with Hawkeye, some Shopper with Arc, and just kind of getting to know customers better and using data to do that. One of the things that we used back in the day was machine learning, and we were building machine learning models, going back to 2018 maybe. And it was a different process. We were scraping and kind of crafting that kind of knowledge base to understand customers in a really specific way. And now that we have frontier models, it changes the way we can use that intelligence to understand people better. And by understand people better, I'm not talking about the precision targeting aspects of people, not their demographics, their income, their geography, all the things that we already knew, but really, what are they saying? How are they saying it? How do they feel about things? We can take advantage of the machine learning aspects of AI and roll that into how we build and structure our new tools. So PRXY AI tools are all semantic based. So we listen to discourse and rhetoric, not only in the social spaces, but coming from subject matter expertise. So we're looking at research papers, white papers, subject matter expertise that comes from hospitals, institutions, conferences, publications, et cetera, So we can get into the weeds in almost any category. We've had some really interesting success, not only with the craft beer and salty snack foods of the world, but also with cybersecurity, with healthcare, and it's starting to take shape and gain traction. But what's been really compelling and stimulating for our team as we've been going is just the level of precision that we can operate in. That's something that was a pleasant surprise. Makes our lives easier as planners and strategists, and I think it gives us a better resolution of who our customers are, what the opportunities really are, and how to take advantage of them.
Let's talk emotional AI. Why is this such a game changer for businesses looking to understand their customers in a new way?
I mean, it's a great question. I think it all depends on the type of business. My background is with very large companies, and if I'm selling toilet paper or if I'm selling potato chips, those are things that probably don't need a lot of hard sell to get people interested in recognizing the need for those products or the desire for those products. But understanding the context. Toilet paper is always interesting. The context or the kind of stories that are around those products, that really does help position a brand, speak to a customer at a higher level, really understand a category and details and opportunities within a category in a better way. So what that translates into really is narrative. So how do we look at narrative and listen to people, and how do we take those narratives and turn them into opportunities? What makes this different and special is that, unlike the focus groups I used to do with 10 people, we're listening to millions, if not hundreds of millions of conversations to derive value and understand the prospect validity of targets. So if you're looking to better prospect, we can give you a long tail of opportunities that have unique context, which might not be in market and present in competitive language. It might be a gap. Understanding those gaps and being able to put a fine point on what makes your product different to a certain select group of people, that's an opportunity. If no one's talking about it, it gives you the opportunity to be the first person talking about it. And if you know that it matters to a certain group of people, it's a good recipe to win that group of people.
Let's look deeper into that, because you've talked about emotions driving decision making. So how does emotional AI help businesses tap into those emotions to make better decisions, also shaping strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think the advantage I've had in working across marketing disciplines, from brand strategy all the way through to shopper marketing, is understanding the value of strategy and intelligence. And this type of tool set and this type of outcome not only drives conversion, drives sales, and can be explicitly linked to traditional mark-on benefits. It also is upstream. It really is important from a brand standpoint. Leads innovation, can help sales and create sales toolkits, develops partnership alignment across category, and then also really does help with CRM. So we can add propensity modeling. We can define and optimize the way a product can go to market, and then also the way a brand stays in market and is present in that market.
So what do you think are some key emotional signals or data points that companies should pay attention to when analyzing that customer behavior?
Yeah, I think the thing to think about is, as you realize through analytics where you're seeing success, the opportunity there is to ask why you're succeeding. That might be the easiest way to start to diagnose a category from an emotional standpoint, because you usually have first party data that gives you a little bit more I guess demographic, at least, or transactional understanding of where somebody is and who they are from a life stage standpoint, from a lifestyle standpoint, perhaps. But then trying to understand what those category signals are is the next step. So what we like to do is we like to take that cohort, model them within our data set, and understand what are common narratives within that within that cohort. What are people talking about? And it doesn't always, have that one-to-one relationship. Sometimes that adjacent conversation is really important. If we're able to understand key narratives, that gets us to some of the emotional context behind those narratives.
Many businesses, let's be honest, you've seen it throughout your entire career, rely heavily on traditional analytics. So, what is this gap that emotional AI fills, that those traditional tools that they say, hey, these have always worked for us,
Right.
that they don't fill?
It's enrichment. I think the easiest way to put it is enrichment. We can build and have been building wonderful media models that offer precision, performance-based targeting. I mean, that's nothing new. The difference now is that we have verbatim. We have the ability to hear the stories that are accompanying those profiles. So not only are you able to give media planning the best possible jumpstart to target appropriately, you're also able to pair that with narratives that help creative develop a message that's aligned to that target. At to date, I think there's a lot of guesswork and a lot of modeling that goes on using deterministic data to make inferences around what people care about based on who those people are. This is basically a way to decode exactly what they are saying, understand that as a long tail, and figure out how to translate that directly into stories that make the most of your media.
Walk us through some real world examples. You don't have to say the company, but some real world examples where emotional data unlocked a surprising insider or gave a company an edge.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the most recent example was in a non-for-profit space where emotion is the currency, and basically what you're dealing with is somebody who's just playing with the volume. So the volume's already up to 10. The challenge is really how do you turn it up to 11? Tear jerking kind of stuff. And what was really interesting and compelling to that client when we shared the research that we were able to do and connect the dots for them that we were able to connect is the nuance. So really what was missing was in the volume of that emotion and the volume of those narratives, what was lost was the context and the ability to kind of dial in, what's the pitch, what's the polarity of that sentiment? How do we understand based on key stakeholders to that client, what do they need to hear in an emotional way? A lot of the time, and we see this in politics especially, volume and sentiment and emotion override any kind of activation, any kind of pathway forward. And I think that's probably another interesting example. I wrote a piece that's available on LinkedIn around what were the narratives that drove party politics in this last election, and it was a supercharged emotional election, and we all know that, and that was one of the reasons why we chose to kind of dissect it. And what we did find was that the party narratives were misaligned, and I thought that was a really interesting insight. It's not really surprising when you think about it as individual narratives, but when you look at it as a collective, you start to be able to provide an analytical point of view to emotion. And I think the ability that we have to take emotion at a granular level to understand it and empathize with it, but then also look at it at scale to be able to, intellectually look at it and figure out what to do about it. That's where the power comes in. It's being able to understand and get like, oh, that's why that's important, but then also understand that that's important to these people. There are these many people. These are their outcomes that we're looking to work towards, and this is how you get there.
PRXY AI trains models to comprehend emotional intelligence. So how do you balance, and this is a challenge, right? How do you balance human interpretation with AI-driven insights to ensure accuracy and relevancy?
Yeah, exactly. That's I think the biggest challenge. Going back, to even before we started, there's the buzzword of hallucination, which scares everybody. There's human in the loop, which is a great term that we, and I think everybody kind of believes in. And then there's the fear that AI is going to be a replacement tool. I think that the first and foremost, the thing that I'm always reminding myself, and I see it as a reflection of the work that we do, is that we're building things. We're not creating efficiencies. This is an adoption of new versus an adaptation of old. So we look at ourselves as innovators in that regard, and I think we're really trying to figure out how do we make a difference as strategists and intelligence-based planning professionals. Our team is a pretty robust executive level team. we're always hands-on. And I think the thing that we're always amazed by is how human the response is. One of the really interesting aspects of this technology is that it's designed to be human-like. So it is a really interesting and kind of off-putting sometimes process to go through, but we are constantly working with it. We're not an API-based, SaaS company. We are a service-based company. We're augmented with software, and I think it creates a lot of efficiencies for the way we think and work. But it doesn't change the role that humans play in the process. I think we are by nature trained to understand empathy, and then as a professional cohort, we are trained to do it as well. So that I think gives us a pretty significant edge in decoding what the AI provides to us. Probably to answer your question better, our PRXY models are our intelligence models that are founded on psychometrics, personality, different emotions. All of those things change by category, but they're baseline in our IP models. When we get into category models, that's when we start to understand a little bit more around the specific emotions, specific narratives, themes, and topics that we're seeing. And that's all based on how we build a corpus or how we build a domain around a category. It's a great learning exercise and experience, but at the same time, it gives us a way to understand derivation of that information. So where is this coming from? Who's the type of person saying this? Gives us that level of breadcrumbing that we can do to understand and stitch stories together. But then we're also corroborating against third-party data, first-party data as well. So we try and make sure that we're bookended by real humans in the loop and then real human data as well. And that also gets us to the point where we're able to activate against our intelligence. So our PII connection points are really great. They enable us to work with data brokerages. They enable us to work with publishers, other media companies. If we have agency clients and they have infrastructure, we can fit right in there. If we have clients that don't have any infrastructure, we're here for you.
So challenges. What challenges do you see companies face when integrating emotional insights into their business strategies, and how do they overcome these hurdles?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there are two main challenges. The first is a technical challenge, and I think the industry right now is kind of organized against a data infrastructure requirement that's assumed, and that's one of the hurdles that we've created a workaround for. So we don't, we're not an API. We don't append into a tech stack. We are our own isolated, data lake of unstructured data, and we, put technology in place to be complementary and, establish connection points depending on the needs of our clients. But we don't have that barrier. So I think the first barrier is technical, and I think we can, get around that in interesting ways. And the second barrier is kind of the fallacy that qualitative isn't deterministic. I think there's been throughout my career kind of a denigration of hand raiser data. It's a survey, and I think the example that if my wife can hear me, she'd laugh is I say I work out. Do I really work out? Until you know deterministically based on behavioral data, I might say it even though I don't do it. So there's always an inconsistency there. That being said, you're asking a person a survey question that can be understood using behavioral data. Why are they working out is the question, or why aren't they working out? Really, in my case, might be the question. The only way to understand that is to ask them, and that's a bottleneck. So traditionally, focus groups are great, surveys are great, but you can only do so much. And we've gone from an industry where we overvalue the qualitative feedback we get from a group of 10 consumers, which we used to overvalue, all the way up to now where we're looking at quantitative data of deterministic data to make inferences around reasons why, and that's not ideal either. The best way to do it is to listen to people say why, understand that at scale, understand the variation in that language, understand the emotional component of those narratives, of those stories, and formulate your insights and takeaways from that. I mean, we've never had a tool like that. That's one of the reasons why I think, everyone we talk to is really excited about it. It's a brand new tool.
So then what industries do you think can benefit most from emotional AI, and
Yeah.
what trends do you foresee for its adoption in, say, the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think that's a really critical question for us. We've kind of gone into business with one thought, focusing on big brands that have big portfolios that get real granular and have a need to kind of scale down into those localized markets with specific levels of intelligence. That's changed a little bit because we've realized that the middle market is kind of an afterthought given the current enterprise data solutions. Offerings right now are six figures. They're hugely challenging for mid-sized enterprises who don't have the team to operate it. They don't have the IT support to kind of help implement it, and they don't have the budget for it in the first place. So, that's a real opportunity for us because we offer a full solution that's priced appropriately, that provides expertise, and that has a team of people that will lean into the needs of your business. And I think that changed my perspective, at least in terms of where the need was and where the potential fit could be. The other flip side to that is, we're talking about client side, and the real importance and value there is that clients really then own their customer, and they can create a customer identity that's persistent across all their agency partners, instead of having each agency kind of reinvent the wheel and then pass it off to a media company who passes it off to a publication. And at each of those stages, that customer definition adjusts a little bit, and then your recipe by the end of the chain is totally different. But the flip side to that are agencies. So, on one hand, we have a really unique emotional intelligence data layer that is unique, and has been seen as being very valuable by large agencies that have everything else, and they understand and appreciate how easy and compatible we are to fit in. So there's a real opportunity there. But then, as I mentioned before, the small agencies, who might not have data IP or data partnerships, or they might not have a team that develops even detailed strategy. We can support them as much or as little as they need, at a price that is affordable and leverages the efficiencies that we have in the way that we work without sacrificing the talent, the attention, the human aspects of it. So there are big opportunities. I feel like, the long story short, I think emotional intelligence and this level of semantic data is going to become much more shiny as an object in terms of how Marcom looks at their tech stack. And at the same time, I think businesses are going to be pulled into a more technology focused customer understanding because of the accessibility.
Sentiment driven strategies, it's a big focus for you. So how can businesses use these insights to improve personalization? You started to touch on that, and also boost the ever important ROI.
Sure. Yeah, I think the easiest way to think about it is content. It's been an interesting conversation because it crosses over between clients and agencies. What we're talking about is really understanding consumer context or category context. What do you do about it? I mean, the easiest way to think about it is what kind of content would you create to help respond to that insight? And sometimes that content comes in the form of customer content to boost experience. And sometimes that content comes in the form of, marketing content to attract new customers. It's one and the same at the end of the day. The challenge then becomes, how do you differentiate? How do you build a more mature, solution as a business to kind of attract and retain customers? The ROI factoring there is conversion to attract prospects, build a pipeline, expand reach and expand, percentage conversion within your reach strategy. But then also, how do you optimize your existing customers? How do you build better propensity models? How do you get better responses from CRM? There's tons of ROI there too. The challenge also is this is on top of existing CRM strategy. again, the key word there, I think we talked about it before, is enrichment. Like, how do we understand your current propensity models for your current CRM and your current customer marketing strategies? How do you deepen those relationships? We can enrich those profiles with the narratives that are, critical for those customers, and how do you respond to them? How do you make that more of a dynamic conversation versus a push style message? One of the things I've learned in my career is, as I have worked across a lot of CRM also, is frequency of message isn't the problem. It's repetitive message that's the problem, or irrelevant message that's the problem. So if you're able to tell, if I'm able to tell you, you have a 20% of your customers want to hear these 10 messages, that's great. There's 10 touch points. There's no need to, govern the volume or the frequency of message if you have the right message. It also improves your ability to test and learn. So, there's great use cases for this, especially as you think about what the relevance is between CRM and marketing, things like that. If you're able to better address and better build a relationship with a customer, the ways you do that should be similar, at least, if not maybe the same, to the ways you attract new customers. So your in-market learning with data like this becomes far more empathetic and far more successful, and hopefully tightens the connection between, again, your media precision and your message precision.
Data. With so much data out there, it's easy for companies to get overwhelmed. What advice would you give leaders who want to really harness emotional insights without drowning in information?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that's another interesting use case too. Is we have, between first-party data, third-party data, whether that data is coming from your existing partners for PII, or if it's coming from media companies that are giving you metrics and measurement. Those analytics can be overwhelming. Your first-party data, you can recut those data sets as much as you want. That's analysis paralysis to a point. This can be a really strong tool to help you almost, again, that word is decode. Like, how do you decode the volume of data that you have? The why data comes first. Like, that's something that I believe. It's something that's been kind of a truism in the space for a long time. But I do think that it's very valid, especially because you're looking for ways to qualify data usage. So instead of thinking of it as a way to qualify a customer, think of it as a way to qualify a process to get to a customer. So if you have, too much data, let's just call it that. We all have too much data. Where, how, and why do you use it? This gives you a roadmap to understand why you should use it. And the rest should hopefully make more sense once you figure that out.
Lastly, what excites you most about the potential, looking ahead, the potential for emotional AI?
Yeah, I think this is, it's one of those challenges, and the fun thing to think about that's, in the distant future for us, not in the near-term future, is how do individuals use this? As we think about the workforce and how the workforce might be changing, how does this become something that people can use, not just companies? It should be owned by people. This is personal information. It's not IP or PII. It's not it's not governed information. It's qualitative, but it's really our culture. So how do we look at culture, emotion, human nature? Things that really are going to be, especially in the AI space, topics to talk about, to varying degrees. How do we retain that humanity and make that more of a usable tool across the board? As we look at freelancers, how do we help freelancers? As we look at individuals, how do we help individuals navigate their space, their selves, etc. It's a little different, a little out there maybe, but when we're a company that's grounded in human nature, those are the types of questions that we're thinking about, and that helps us not only plan for tool sets to come, but also optimize our existing tool sets.
Finally, what do you have going at PRXY AI? It's been exciting to watch your journey so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. We're not a year yet, and we've been expanding our usage of different models. As AI has been revolutions of evolutions over the past 9 months. Especially this past month. I can't tell you how awesome and at the same time kind of scary it is to see all your foundational models changing from a frontier standpoint. It's great because it gives us the ability to understand what we do works across models. So we're not aligned to ChatGPT, we're not aligned to Llama, we're not aligned to Gemini, et cetera. And all those models are getting better and better and better. And we're figuring out ways to optimize how good they are as quickly as they're coming out. I think what's exciting to us is moving our models to what's next. How do we maintain portability of the tech that we have? And then how do we build out our categorization models? Right now we have core emotional models that are the foundation of the work we do, but then we build these corpus models on top that are categorical. How do we optimize those categories? How do we make those categories now talk to one another and understand the role of adjacency from category to category? There's a lot of really interesting stuff that gets a bit academic, but that's going to be really interesting in terms of the level of understanding that we have within categories. And I think, maybe thinking about intelligence as understanding versus something that's, maybe too highfalutin as intelligence. It is intelligence, but it's really the intelligence that enables us to understand people. And I think that's what makes it pretty special.
Wonderful. Josh, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'd love to sit again here in another 12 months and see how it's evolved again.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks.
I love diving into this space with Josh and uncovering how we can better attain and utilize customer sentiment. If you'd like to listen to past episodes of SweetSpeak, go to jamesduane.com, that's DWAYNE, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the interviews on the website as well as on our YouTube page. SweetSpeak is a production of James Duane Group. Visit our website for more information about James Duane Group, our event and moderation services, along with marketing offerings. Thanks for listening.